or meditation. Please be seated. Just a few things. Honorable members, you are allowed to speak from where you are, but not behind the screens. If you are behind the screens, please come closer. We want to welcome the members in the gallery, the members of the public in the gallery. But please, we love you. We acknowledge your presence here. Help us by not participating in the debate. One of those being clapping of hands and taking pictures. Let's uphold the decorum of the House. Thank you. The Secretary will now read the order.
Debate on vote number 30, Environmental Affairs Appropriation Bill.
We now call on the Minister of Environmental Affairs, the Honorable the Minister Molewa.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair. Honorable Ministers, I see Minister Pando here and I hear her voice. Honorable colleagues, the MECs who are present here, MEC Bradell, I've seen him out there. Honorable members of the Portfolio Committee and Chair, particularly led by yourself, Chief Executives of public entities, and all distinguished ladies and gentlemen, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It's a very good day, rainy, and today we consider the budget of the Department of Environmental Affairs program priorities. This budget reflects a clear mandate given by South Africans to implement the ruling party's policies. As humanity continues to consume the Earth's resources at an ever-increasing and unsustainable rate, we are experiencing rapid, accelerated trends of environmental degradation and climate change globally. The international responses to these threats are driven by a changing world order, characterized by the rise of emerging economies, rapidly changing patterns of international economic competitiveness, and a widespread shift towards green, climate resilient, and low-carbon development policies and strategies. In response, environmental considerations are being mainstreamed in development policies across the economy, which demands the environmental affairs radically transform its approach, and we do so in this following manner. We firstly coordinate, support, and lead the environmental dimensions of South Africa's broader green and blue economy and sustainable development efforts, and also ensure the sustainable use of conservation of our biodiversity, natural heritage and ecosystems, resources and services. And we also protect and manage environmental degradation, environmental impact and environmental health threats and risks for the benefit of current and future generations. Lastly, we optimize job creation, skills development, livelihood security, and environmental sector socio-economic development core benefits. And as far as sustainable development and green economies are concerned, in response, our need for a long-term solution to the challenges we face as South Africa has actually been contained in the National Development Plan. As we continue, therefore, we're implementing the National Development Plan. This NDP outlines the urgent need to transition our economy to an internationally competitive, job-creating, sustainable, climate resilient and low carbon development path. All these we do while recognizing that South Africa's natural capital in the form of ecosystems, biodiversity and other natural resources is indeed critical foundation to unlock and also boost the socio-economic growth and ensuring long-term well-being of our society. This requires a coherent and conducive policy, fiscal, regulatory, and governance system to facilitate innovative and incentives to enable and support, including the investment in the development of new green and blue economic industries, growing existing green and blue sectors, investing in the green and blue transition to existing sector industries, and finally promoting consumer and societal behavior change to more sustainable patterns of consumer and production. In order to facilitate and support accelerated implementation of sustainable development initiatives, the amendments of the National Environment Management Act have been effected so as to develop an integrated environmental regulatory system that now includes environmental authorizations for mining developments. And accordingly, the Minister of Mineral Resources will now issue mining-related environmental impact assessments and waste license authorization, with the Minister of Environment being the appeals authority of mining as well. The cooperative governance arrangement also aligns the simultaneous processing of air emissions and water use license for mining activities. This has necessitated amendment in the National Environment Management, Waste and Quality Management and Water Services Act, and further regulations to this effect are being developed and will be published in this next financial year. Chairperson, our strategy on green economy, guided by the NDP vision, is comprised of 8 key pillars, as we may all know by now, and that's namely green buildings and built environment, sustainable transport and infrastructure, clean energy and energy efficiency, resource conservation and management, sustainable water management, sustainable consumption and production, as well as agricultural food production and forestry. We've got to do something about all these 8 pillars. The key challenge to implementation at economy-wide scale is indeed financing. Our National Green Fund, which came very handy thanks to Treasury and the South African government, is one example of our innovative approach to catalyze this financing and investment. We have made great strides in this regard, with the implementation of 22 multi-year green economy projects and 16 research and technology-related projects valued at 572 million rand. These investments are bolstered by international efforts, such as the Global Environment Facility, an international financing mechanism to support developing countries. We are also pushing very hard for the final operationalization of the Green Climate Fund that is intended to mobilize significant financial investment support for low carbon and climate resilient development in developing countries. I must acknowledge with appreciation the bilateral cooperation and partnership programs in environment and sustainable development that are being implemented by South Africa with our partners, particularly those from Germany, Norway, and USA. We are working out growing existing green sectors or industries that are at the same time maximizing job creation core benefits. Through the expanded public works program culture and environmental program, we are working on expanding job creation in the medium term, and the Deputy Minister will allude to this in detail. I would now like to address our efforts towards realizing the constitutional mandate to protect and manage environmental degradation, environmental impact, and environmental health threats and risks. And this, I start with air quality and climate change. We all know that air pollution is actually recognized as a very serious health hazard. Every effort must be made to protect people's right in air quality. Industry must reduce its emissions, government must enforce minimum emission standards and monitor air quality. Activist organizations must continue to raise their alarm when necessary. In 2010, National Environment Management Air Quality Act came into full effect. Instead of controlling only what comes out of the individual stacks, the Act represents a paradigm shift. It offers an integrated and outcomes-based approach to reduce the impact of multiple source pollution. We achieve this by setting minimum emission standards to control the amount of industrial pollution that enters the atmosphere. Priority areas have been declared, including Vaal Triangle, Highveld, Waterberg, where ambient air quality standard is currently compromised and may be exceeded into the future. We are continuously measuring the quality of air through 102 government-owned air quality monitoring stations, countrywide, that measure compliance, and SOURCE is very involved. South African Weather Services, is involved in this. These stations continuously send data to South African air quality information systems managed by the South African Weather Services. We are cognizant that we are part of a global community and that greenhouse gas emissions are severely impacting the green system. The climate system, sorry. Our continent is among the most vulnerable of these impacts, with future temperature increases of 4 degrees Celsius or more predicted in some countries. The IPCC, that's the International Panel on Climate Change, their report released recently confirmed that global emissions have been raised to unprecedented levels with negative effects on agriculture, human health, ecosystems, water supplies, and people's livelihood worldwide. South Africa is actively participating in the international climate change negotiations towards a new multilateral legal agreement targeted for finalization in COP21, which is to be held in Paris in December 2015. This global agreement must be legal, must be multilateral, rules-based system that is inclusive, that is fair, that is effective, and that's based on science and adequate levels of ambitious climate action to keep the temperatures below 2 degrees Celsius. Our national climate change response policy, which we launched just before COP17 here in South Africa, is aimed at building social, economic, and environmental resilience to the impact of climate change and making a fair contribution to the global effort to stabilize greenhouse gas concentration. Chair, South Africa's emission reduction approach is guided by a comprehensive analysis of potential emission reduction opportunities in key economic sectors, including energy and industry, transport, agriculture, and waste. We have found that almost 40% of the total emission reduction estimated for 2020 can actually be achieved through implementing mitigation measures that provide big cost savings and energy efficiency. So we must just act in those areas because there's not much cost involved. The next step is to define desired emission reductions, or what you call the DEROs, per sector in order to meet our commitment to implement mitigation actions that will collectively result in the 34% deviation below business as usual emission growth, that trajectory by 2020, and 42% by 2025. This is a commitment that we made through our President at World Climate Change discussion, and therefore we must continue to implement that. South Africa is really hard at work, increasing renewable energy, increasing energy efficiency, and growing our public transport system. We are very much aware of all the programs that are going on, and we are proud of that. To ensure our country's food, water, energy, and infrastructure security is not negatively impacted by climate change, we have developed the long-term adaptation scenario. That's over and above the long-term mitigation scenario. We have a long-term adaptation scenario to inform adaptation planning and implementation, because we have to plan within the context of what we know. These interventions involving all stakeholders will ensure water, food, and health security, and that infrastructure in coastal areas are protected from potential sea level rise. Chairperson, the National Waste Management Act and National Waste Management Strategy entrenches a universal waste management principle of reducing, reusing, recycling, and recovery of waste. Among the identified goals of our waste management strategy is the contribution of the waste sector to the green economy. And I'm pleased to announce that this Waste Management Act 24 is actually in effect since the 2nd June 2014. It establishes an economic base for viable recycling. It apportions sufficient value to waste to facilitate demand for recyclable, thereby producing more jobs and enterprise development from waste sector. Recycling has been valued at a contribution of as much as 50 billion rand to the South African economy. In effect, waste will now be a renewable resource and not something to throw away. In terms of prioritization waste stream, we began with plastic bags in 2002 and initiated a national waste tire last year, and going forward we'll prioritize the electronic waste, paper, and packaging. The tire plan alone will create more than 10,000 jobs in the next 2 years. The Act also now provides for a pricing strategy for the waste management charges, the establishment of Waste Management Bureau, and for mechanism to oversee the disbursement of revenue collected from waste. We will also consult on the proposed development of regulations for separation of waste at source and banning of plastic waste at landfill site, a moratorium on the landfill site, a prohibition of the banning of waste, a regional approach to waste management and disposal, meaning that we have to consider the regional landfill sites, and also a deposit return charge on plastic bottles, and on how the revenue will fund industry and community initiatives to recycle and recover waste stream. We have seen a fundamental improvement in the provision of access to waste collection services over the last 20 years in particular, because nothing was done previously, particularly in the last 5 years. This positive trend will be sustained with more households being provided with waste collection services towards achieving an 80% access to basic waste collection services for the households. We continue our commitment to licensing all unlicensed landfill sites, and I'm happy to announce that all 341 identified unlicensed sites will be finally regularized by the end of September this year. And I urge all South Africans across the country to heed the call for action made by our president in his SONA to play our part in cleaning up the environment by committing just our 67 minutes on the 18th of July, being Nelson Mandela Day, in the true legacy of Madiba. I'm calling on all citizens to demonstrate their commitment. The effects of mercury, ladies and gentlemen, on the environment and human health have been widely documented. It accumulates globally on our food, water, environment, and it is hazardous and can be really fatal. The international community has finalized a legal binding treaty on mercury. It's known as the Minamata Convention, which we signed in October last year as South Africa. The department has already begun work to process this work in Parliament and ensure that we actually accede to this convention and bring it into force. I've also published the National Ozone Depleting Substance Regulations and the Polychlorinated Biphenyl Regulations aimed at phasing out these harmful chemicals. We have also developed a public education and awareness strategy that, amongst other things, promotes safe use of chemicals as well as access to information on the sound management of chemicals. We also commence with this year with the training of customs officials on the import and export of chemicals. And I'm pleased to announce that we'll host an annual World Ozone Day event on September 16 in Eastern Cape. I would now like to address the program issue on sustainable use and conservation on our biodiversity and natural heritage and ecosystem resources services. Chair, South Africa's National Botanical Garden, as windows and ambassadors of biodiversity, have been visited by more than 22.7 million visitors and generated over 400 million self-generated income, largely from admissions, rental, and sales to supplement government grant and support garden-based operations. The South African National Biodiversity Institute drives important and policy-relevant biodiversity and ecosystems research program through the extensive international academic research network, but also working with our Department of Science and Technology as a leader in the science field. Thank you, Minister Pando, also for being here and for all the support you give all the time. We come now to poaching, which remains the biggest threat to South Africa's rhino. There has been an alarming increase in rhino poaching countrywide. Because it is part of a multi-million-dollar worldwide illicit wildlife trade, addressing the scourge is not simple. That is why we will continue to strengthen a holistic and an integrated intervention and explore new innovative options to ensure a long-term survival of these species. Our conservation efforts have been working. Over the first 6 months in 2014, 136 suspects were arrested and charged for rhino poaching and related crimes. This represents an increase on the 134 arrests over the same period last year. An amount of 8 million rand from the Asset Forfeiture Unit was handed over to SANParks as part of criminal proceedings against the member of poaching syndicates who were arrested during the course of the year. An amount of 103 million rand for the period 2014-2015, 2016-2017 has been allocated to SANParks for the purpose of combating rhino poaching. This is in addition to other financial assistance that SANPark has and continue to receive from private sector organizations through a fundraising initiative. Our priority engagements with key African countries such as Mozambique will continue to receive high attention. An international agreement with Mozambique authorities has been signed to strengthen the fight against rhino poaching, and an implementation plan for the 5 years is currently being jointly negotiated. Further afield, our engagements with Far East countries, including Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Hong Kong, which is part of the Republic of China, and indeed China, to address the demand for illegal trade in wildlife and wildlife products are beginning to bear fruit. South Africa will host the 17th Conference of Parties, which is COP17. And the process to prepare for this COP has been initiated. The hosting of a COP will provide South Africa with an opportunity to demonstrate its conservation successes, which are enormous indeed, and to promote sustainable utilization as an integral part of conservation and economic growth. Considering the importance of some forms of legal international trade in wildlife products and the challenges posed by illegal wild trade, The COP will present an opportunity to open rational discussions on potential solutions that will enable countries, communities, and species to benefit from a sustainable use approach, including possible well-regulated trade regime, while ensuring illegal activities are dealt with effectively and punitively. The billion-dollar illegal trade of fauna and flora, that is other than fishery and timber, involves a wide range of species, including insects, reptiles, amphibians, fish, and mammals, all of which are high value to our national economies. Last year, Cabinet directed that we investigate the desirability and feasibility of the possibility of making a proposal on the legalization of trade horn and a potential intervention to reduce the incidence of poaching at the 17th Conference of Parties in CITES in 2016. The Interministerial Committee, IMC, that has been appointed will first consider a report from the panel of experts which has been appointed in January this year, and the panel will also engage with various stakeholders during the process. No decision has been made yet on this issue as a work is going on. So we are investigating. Let all South Africans participate. We would like to urge all of us stakeholders to work with us in ensuring that whatever position we adopt at CITES in 2016 is well researched, and Minister Pandor, once again, we call upon you to help in this regard and adheres to sustainable utilization principles. We also welcome the decision of the World Heritage Committee in UNESCO to approve a reduced buffer zone of Mapungubwe World Heritage Site. Our department will now move to the next stage of consultation with a view of beginning to implement this buffer zone in national legislation. This critical issue of mining, which has in the past led to a conflict between conservation and development, will now be addressed through the implementation of a mining and biodiversity guidelines, which was published by our department and Department of Mineral Resources last year. These guidelines also introduce an extremely important concept, which is now called the biodiversity offsetting, aimed at restoring the environment and development balance. This tool is specifically designed to ensure that we leave subsequent generations with at least a biodiversity endowment at the least equal value. However, biodiversity is not the only area where offsetting can happen. There are many areas, like in the area of air quality, in water, carbon offsetting, and so forth. So we'll investigate in all these areas. And to this end, the department will be exploring exciting concept of environmental offsetting, and we're looking forward to work with the academia and the NGOs. Invasive alien species are now recognized worldwide as among the greatest threats of biological diversity and the ecological functioning of natural systems, to the productive potential of land and water, to the economy, and in terms of diseases. Environmental biosecurity will complement the internationally commended Working For program in preventing the introduction of potential invasive species and managing those already in the country. This will prevent impact on the losses that can be measured in hundreds of billions of rands, apart from being the single biggest program to create jobs for the unemployed people in South Africa. Last year, Chair, we published a green paper on the policy for the National Environment Management of Oceans, currently called the white paper, has been approved by Cabinet. This policy identified that South Africa has not fully exploited the economic, commercial, industrial, and large-scale livelihood opportunities presented by the sustainable use and management of oceans surrounding our country. We are coordinating a discussion between all relevant departments, public entities, and stakeholders to examine and assess the socio-economic opportunities of sustainable oceans use and management for South Africa as a basis for developing vibrant economy in the oceans. And accordingly, the number of jobs linked to this ocean economy could rise to between 800,000 and 1 million, and possibly triple the current contribution of 316,000 jobs. We are developing a 5 to 10-year plan to unlock growth in these sectors and adapting a methodology used by Malaysia, which is called Big Fast Results. Now South Africa has coined it PAKISA, Operation PAKISA, to emphasize its critical role in the fast-tracking delivery and on the priorities, including the NDP. For those of us who may not understand what PAKISA is, hurry up quickly. President Zuma will launch this program this Saturday in Durban. South Africa is working.
1 minute.
We are working on the national environment interest through a global sustainable development, and indeed at an international level, We're working with SADC as I conclude. This coming August month, heads of states will sign a protocol at the SADC level, but at all other levels, environment, be it climate change and all, we continue to represent our national interests. And would like to take this opportunity to thank you very much, all of you esteemed members. We're looking forward to working with the Portfolio Committee Chair. Thank you very much. And all members of the Portfolio Committee and all of us in the legislature. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, because you don't have clocks, those who are on the speakers list, I will give an indication when you have 1 minute left. Okay, let it not disturb you. Okay. We now call on the Honorable J.M. Tembo.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson of Committees, Honorable Minister Edna Mulewa, Honorable Deputy Minister Barbara Thompson, members of this Portfolio Committee on Environment, indeed, all who are here from the environmental sector, members of the media who are present here, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a great pleasure to extend to all of you, on behalf of the Portfolio Committee on Environmental Affairs, a warm welcome to this annual debate of the budget vote of the Department of Environmental Affairs. I rise on this occasion on behalf of the African National Congress in support of this budget allocation to the department. I truly consider it an honor for me to stand before this august house to make my maiden speech on the budget vote of the department. And in so doing, it will be inappropriate of me as the chairperson of the committee not to start this debate by thanking all members of the Portfolio Committee for their integrity, thoroughness, and intellectual vigor that they displayed participating in the activities of the committee, particularly in scrutinizing the budget allocation to the department for the current year. The most assuring thing that we have as South Africans is that despite our political differences, we have a shared understanding of what needs to be done to protect our environment and bequeath it in a form that the future generations of South Africa will be proud of, as demonstrated by the current body of national policy and legal frameworks that the ANC championed for the environmental sector. It is precisely in this context that I also stand here fully cognizant and proud that the organization and the movement that deployed me to this parliament has always and still continues to be a torchbearer, not only for political freedoms all over the world, but also for socio-economic and environmental rights. Throughout its inception, the African National Congress never saw the political emancipation of the people of South Africa as divorced from the protection of the environment that they live in. This was amply demonstrated, Chairperson, by the ANC in 1992 when the organization released its seminal paper titled Ready to Govern, ANC Policy Guidelines for a Democratic South Africa. The guiding principle for the environmental sector in that document have since shaped and continue to define our thinking and practice as a nation. I open quotes from that seminal document. The ANC believes that all citizens of South Africa at present and in future have the right to a safe and healthy environment and to a life of well-being. I close quote. It is in this noble goal of the protection and conservation of the environment that has also found concrete expression in our Constitution, which the African National Congress was a major sponsor, which states that, I open quote, all South Africans have a constitutional right to an environment that is not harmful to their health, well-being, and to have the environment protected for the benefit of the present and future generations. The ANC has also in all its conferences, including the last conference held in Mangaung in 2012, given enough and ample time to discuss ways and means of protecting and conserving the environment and how best South Africa should adopt a development trajectory of a green economy as it takes measures to mitigate and adapt to climate change impact exacerbated by greenhouse gas emissions into the atmosphere. This came as a clear understanding by the ANC of the terrible consequences that the continued emissions of greenhouse gas into the atmosphere would have on various sectors of the economy, including agriculture, and the resultant devastating effect on the most vulnerable in South Africa. We also hold, dear Chairperson, this budget vote a day before we observe the International Nelson Mandela Day, an icon of our struggle for peace in the world, but equally a fierce proponent for the protection and the conservation of the world environment. It would therefore be appropriate to recall his famous poetic statement on the birth of our democracy, when he said, I open quotes, I dream of realization of the unity of Africa, whereby its leaders combine efforts to solve the problems of this continent. And I dream of our vast deserts, the forests, and of all the wilderness of our continent, wild places that we should protect as a precious heritage for our children and for our children's children. We must never forget that it is our duty to protect this environment. So said Madiba. Tomorrow, all of us, as we have said, Honorable Minister, will be doing our bit to clean our environment in honor of this wonderful human being, Madiba. Chairperson, I will also participate in this campaign of cleaning our environment as pronounced by President Jacob Zuma. We are therefore, of course, as we participate in cleaning the environment, we will all be wearing our boots, Minister, our overalls, our macarapas, because when you do cleaning, you need this protective clothing, not in Parliament, Chairperson. I hope that some members of this House will learn a bit from what Madiba taught us. We are therefore here, Chairperson, to debate whether the financial allocation to this department for this year, 2014-15, are justifiable. Secondly, we are here to also debate, arising out of the report of the Portfolio Committee, whether the strategic plans and the annual performance plans for this year of the department and entities that report to it are credible and implementable. When we met with the department on the 1st of July, 2014, we were fairly comfortable as a committee to undertake this very important task because we had met with the department prior to that meeting to ascertain the mandate they carry and how they take that mandate forward. Again, we would like to thank the Director General who led the department in giving us working information on what this department is about, long before we interacted with their strategic plans. Thank you, DG, and thank you to the department. The department came and was represented by the Director General, who led a contingent of executive managers as well as senior leaders of the various entities reporting to the department, namely the South African National Parks, the South African Weather Services, Isimangaliso Wetland Park, and the South African National Biodiversity Institute. Chairperson, from the onset, we want to start by fully agreeing with the President of the Republic of South Africa, President Jacob Zuma, in separating the Department of Environmental Affairs from what used to be the Department of Water Environmental Affairs. We believe, Chairperson, this separation will give the Minister, who is now the Minister of Environmental Affairs, Minister Edna Molewa, and her Deputy Minister Barbara Thompson, ample opportunity and time to focus on matters of the environment. Equally, We believe, Chairperson, the separation of the two areas of work will also give the incoming new Minister of Water and Sanitation, the Honorable Minister Mokonyane, undivided attention in addressing the water and sanitation needs of all South Africans. Chairperson, prior to 1994, environmental governance was an emerging discipline that was selectively applied and highly fragmented in its application. The right to a clean and healthy environment was not enshrined in a constitutional system, but was nevertheless selectively applied. The past 20 years have seen a dramatic and sustained process of formation of environmental guiding principles, institution building, and restructuring coupled with legislation and policy development. We have also seen in the 20 years domestic and international engagements, as indeed alluded to by the Minister, all with the intention of addressing the historical legacy of inequality, international isolation, and the fragmented structures of environmental governance. The first decade of our democratic state entailed a paradigm shift in the regulatory framework and consultative approach to environmental management, culminating in the adoption of the National Environmental Management Act, NEMA, as the framework environmental legislation. This decade also involved a repositioning of the environmental sector as a strategic economic function within government, with a substantial increase in its budgetary allocation and the development of more detailed sectoral regulations, including amendments and additions to NEMA. The second decade of our democracy, Chairperson, saw this Department of Environmental Affairs consolidating the dramatic and revolutionary changes of the first decade and focused on building implementation capacity as well as supporting regulatory instruments. The last years of the second decade has seen progress in environmental governance, characterized by a performance-based approach to environmental management with a focus on monitoring achievements and refining, streamlining environmental goals within the context, Chair, of enhancing the movement towards a green economy for all sectors of our country. Chairperson, we can clearly state that South Africa has come a long way in ensuring constitutional enshrined right to clean and healthy environment is realized and protected. The collaboration and cooperation by all spheres of government and civil society have been central in getting the nation to working towards a green, pro-jobs, pro-development future. South Africa is redressing the previous environmental protection imbalances by implementing pro-poor sustainable development programs. It is in this context, Chairperson, that all of us as South Africans must feel proud of the achievements of the past 20 years, particularly the efforts that have been put to protect and conserve the environment, which have always been people-centric. The achievements of the past 20 years should be able to assist us as a solid foundation as we continue with our work of further reconstruction and development in the next decade of our lives. Chairperson, in its first environmental performance review of South Africa, the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development in Europe, it's normally referred to as OECD, praises the progress made with environmental reforms in our country. And it says, progress has been remarkable. Let me quote from what this organization has said. I open quotes. For example, environmentally related taxes generate revenue on par with many OECD countries. Subsidies for fossil fuel consumption are much lower in many other emerging market economies. A Green Economy Accord was launched in 2011 to promote partnership with the private sector and others to green the South African economy. In some areas, such as biodiversity, South Africa has developed pioneering laws and policies that are more advanced and superior than in many OECD member countries. The human and financial resources allocated to the environment have been significantly strengthened, and an effective framework for enforcing environmental laws has been put in place. I close quote. Now, we are not ourselves that are only saying, it's not only ourselves who say we have a good story to tell. It's also some wonderful, well-researched people residing somewhere at a place called Europe. It's unfortunate that as South Africans at times, we wait to hear from others before we can really pat our backs. Chairperson, you would know as I know, or as I do, that in a democratic South Africa today, you cannot undertake any development of any nature unless an environmental impact assessment has been conducted. Finish and learn. We therefore have been able as a country, Chair, to stitch into our DNA of economic development the very necessary and important aspect of safeguarding the environment for future generations. Chairperson, in the quest of taking environmental governance further and implementing the regulatory framework we have put into place, the department is structured in the following programs: administration, legal authorization, compliance, enforcement, oceans and coast, climate change, air quality management, biodiversity and conservation, environmental programs, and the chemical and waste management. The department, by the way, so that we all don't forget, because we are just human beings, we are prone to forgetting, the department has in many years preceding this one received unqualified audit reports from the Auditor General. We are nonetheless quite aware that the annual report of the department for 2013 and 14 is still being audited. And we are quite confident that that annual report will also receive a wonderful audit outcome from the Auditor General. The department and its entities have in many years been able to spend over 95% of the budget allocations to this department. This fact alone, Chair, convinces us that the department has the necessary human capacity and expertise to carry forward the mandate they have. At present, the department has 141 members of senior management service. 55 of those are women, giving this structure of senior management in this department a 40% women representation. That's good, but it can be better. We are also fully aware that there are 35 people with disabilities in the department, accounting to a 2.2% representation. We are therefore confident that the department, when it says in this financial year, it will be able to up women representation to 50%, that's credible, that's achievable. When it says it will go up to 2.6% in relation to people with disabilities, that's achievable. But it's also above the 2% that is legislated. Work well done. Chairperson, the President of the Republic of South Africa, uNcamalala, umsholozi wema, J.G. Zuma, in his second State of the Nation address this year, implored all of us as South Africans, government departments, including every sector of the economy, to work towards the achievement of a 5% increase in our GDP in the next 5 years. I'm therefore confident, Chair, that this department's plans to map out the potential of our blue or ocean economy, a new sector in our economic mix, will go a long way in taking forward the guidance by the President. This blue economy which amongst others will include marine transport and manufacturing, repair of ships, oil rigs and building of boats and ships, possible offshore production of oil and gas, will go a long way in making a significant contribution to the increase in our GDP.
1 minute.
Okay, awuthi siye kule indaba ke lena. Ngoba siyabona ukuthi seyinkinga ke lento. Chair, perhaps if I have not said so, let me say so. We support this budget vote. We are informed, Chair, that approximately 90% of global natural disasters are related to severe weather and climate events. It is in this regard that we applaud the significant role that the South African Weather Service continue to play in issuing weather warnings, all severe weather events, threat to our lives, and damage to property to South Africans and also beyond our borders. Equally important is the vital role that the South African Weather Service has played over the years in adaptation strategies and applications that benefit various sectors in planning and decision-making and risk management by monitoring and focusing services on all time scales. Therefore,
Honorable Member, your time has expired.
thank you.
Honorable members, please assist me. Honorable members, your conversing is too loud, especially those close to me. Please, let's try, as I said before. I don't want to be coming back and saying, please keep quiet, please speak low. I'm saying it once. We now call on the Honorable T.Z. Khadebe. Thank you, Honorable Mtembu. We call on them.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Minister, honorable members, all protocol observed. Honorable Minister and members, I do not need to remind you about the mandate of the department, but would like to quote, as the chairperson of the portfolio quoted, Section 24B of the Constitution. All South Africans have a constitutional right to an environment that is not harmful to their health or well-being, and to have the environment protected. We need to ask ourselves whenever taking action, what does this do to our environment? In that regard, we welcome the move by the department on the gazetted code of ethics for air dispersion modeling. We hope that the department will effectively implement the content thereof. We also welcome the relocation by the department to the new eco-friendly building. We urge other ministries to follow this example. Madam Minister, the NDP charts the way for South Africans who efficiently and effectively utilize the natural resources for the benefit of all its citizens. The said benefits will not be enjoyed by our children and future generations if we are not ensuring a sustainable environment and a transition to a low-carbon economy. In order for the department to be able to fulfill its constitutional mandate, there must be adequate funding. It is worrying to see that some of the programs have inadequate funding or less money. Budget cuts in this manner will essentially result in a deficiency in execution of these functions. I would like to draw the Honorable Minister's attention to the following programs. Program 4, that is climate change and air quality. This function has been given 6.1 million less on the budget. The world has woken up to the threats which climate change presents. Has this department woken up and adequately budgeted for impact of climate change? The devastating effects of climate change, like drought, food shortages, and floods, are well documented. We cannot afford a slow response to the storm which lies ahead. At the meeting of the Committee of African Heads of State and Government on Climate Change in Malabo on the 26th of June this year, the meeting identified 5 key points in setting up plans for climate change in Africa, namely climate change finance and technology needs, adaptation, mitigation, participation, and institutional cooperation. At that meeting, Honorable Dr. Dlamini Zuma, addressing members, said, Africa is the region which least capacity to deal with challenges of adaptation. which is why the issue of climate change is so alarming and call for a decisive action. If this is a critical function for the whole African continent, then why is not enough funding made available? Honorable Madam Minister, a healthy environment is essential for citizens to seize opportunity to create sustainable livelihoods. Opportunity for new jobs in the green economy are numerous, provided that an enabling environment is created. The effective response to climate change is required in order for South Africa to contribute to the global effort to stabilize climate system and to make our country more resilient to climate change. An effective response to climate change will also offer opportunity for development and introduction of new technologies, the stimulation of demand for new products, and the associated creation of jobs. A job-creating green economy can be stimulated by incentivizing investment in green economic sector, providing leadership in the economy, showcasing the best practice, and supporting research and innovation. The current budget creates no opportunities for this. Minister, we also need to address urgently the emission caused by Eskom coal-fired power stations. The emissions at the coal-fired power station cause respiratory problems for many South Africans, particularly to those with compromised immune system. Honorable Minister, a degrading environment negatively impacts on quality of life faced by the communities surrounding these plants and negates attempts to alleviate their plight. Honorable Minister, in the recent publication, it is reported that the latest greenhouse gas inventory suggests that the national emission reached a record of 579,256 gigagrams, which is equivalent to a CO2 in 2010, an increase of 24.9% compared with the emissions levels in 2000. That is a whopping 25% increase over the past 10 years. Despite the warnings that all countries need to reduce emissions drastically to avoid dangerous alterations to the world climate patterns, we need to be investing in research, unlocking data and information to better understand the projected impacts of climate change and better prepare our communities and infrastructure. The research will help us to find appropriate models of funding and will facilitate informed judgments around climate change and dealing with industrial pollution. It is fine and well to monitor these levels, but we need to actually do something about them. The Honorable Minister must act and must put the department's money where its mouth is. When it comes to South African weather services, as we know, our country is heavily engaged in agriculture, and the economy is furthermore dependent on weather patterns. Predictability of our weather is becoming less certain, especially with the effects of climate change. So the reduction of 20 million in 2014-2015 financial budget and a further cut of 20 million in 2015-26 budget for South African weather services does not make sense. Our farms, fishers, tourism industry, transport infrastructure, ports and airlines need accurate first world weather reports if they are to function effectively, safely, and productively. It is noted with concern that the departments were underfunded in the previous budget allocation. As a result, South African Weather Service has struggled to fully implement its mandate. A further budget cut will only aggravate the situation. Madam, I would also like to bring you to the Program 3, Oceans and Coasts. Honorable Minister, I would like you to bring the attention of poaching of our marine resources, abalone poaching. The criminal syndicates next to us are allegedly cleaning the rocks of abalone to meet the demand of the black market. This is driving the species to the edge of extinction on our shores. They do this without fear of being caught, even in the broad daylight. These poachers are lurking in many coastal villages. Recently, it was reported that poachers walked through Betty's Bay Marine Protected Area and an endangered seabird breeding colony, disturbing endangered breeding birds and entered the water in full view of the people. This is clear indication that the criminals no longer fear the state. I call on Honorable Minister to budget for crackdowns on all poachers and any encroachments on endangered protected areas. South Africa is our country, this is our environment, and we have to do everything in our power to protect, maintain, and nurture our environment. What we do or fail to do in this fifth parliament will echo forever in eternity. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Khadebe. I now call on Honorable Mqita. Pardon me for... Honorable
Chair,
Member, please, would you please come closer? Yes, it's fine there, from there.
Thanks, Chair. The mandate of the department is framed in the Constitution as protecting the environment today and for tomorrow. Sadly, this modest mandate cannot be fulfilled because the department, like all government departments, have chosen the path of putting profits before people. Basically, the department's logic is about saving capital. The ANC, this government, has inserted our nation into the global system of capitalism in ways that will ensure the end of our planet as we know it. If we do not act radically and fast enough, in this century alone, 200 million Africans shall perish as a result of climate change impact. Honorable members, the current levels of greenhouse gas emissions shall have only one outcome if we don't act: an ecological holocaust. The simple truth is that the West, including the UN system, does not have answers to the ecological disaster facing us because they are all married to the capitalist logic which wants more and more from nature and from people. In the SONA, President Zuma spoke at length about the new energy generation sources, all of which shall contribute to the warming of our globe. The President further surrendered the prospects of a green economy to the whims of private capital. We must remember the ANC pocketed 50 million rand from its relationship with Hitachi after creating an energy crisis that could have been resolved. We also remember that by the way, we can solve this problem of the immediate problems of energy by simply doing a very simple thing, by stopping giving BHP Billiton energy for free. Why are we supporting a multinational with our energy? The EFF is very clear, therefore, that it cannot support this budget which is silent on our people who live in high toxicity areas, industrial areas. We say very clearly that no to nuclear energy. We must remember what happened in Japan, its economy and people. We say no to shale gas fracking. We say no to coal-based energy sources. We need a paradigm shift. We say yes to the adaptation of 1 million climate jobs. We say yes to the demand that all polluters must pay for their ecological and social debt. We say yes to the end of GMOs. We say also yes that no more emissions must be paid for. We also say yes to this government to stop paying BHP Billiton with our money. We also say South African government must support the class action of our people, ex-mine workers, who are suing those mining houses who have destroyed them and they are sick now without any assistance. Let's support that. Honorable Tembu, your rhinos are not going to be safe until our people are safe. We have to make sure that we move away from this real prospect of the carcasses of the rhino that we see. That is the future that awaits us. And in conclusion...
Just hold it. I'll add your minutes.
What's my minute?
I'll add your seconds. Honorable members of the public, let's not send our sergeants up there. I think I gave a ruling before we started. No participation in debates. Thank you. Continue.
Thank you. The rhino is a perfect metaphor of the system we are up against. Those driven by the profit motive shall continue to chase the animal, steal its horn, and leave it in great agony and death. The horrid picture of the rotting carcass of a murdered rhino speaks to the collective future that we have. The rhino, like our planet, has no future outside the future that put people first. We agree with Evo Morales. Either capitalism dies or Mother Earth dies. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mkitam. We now call on Honorable Singh.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Minister, Deputy Minister, colleagues. Let me at the outset say I do not serve on this committee, Portfolio Committee, but I have a deep and passionate interest in environmental matters, as I had been MEC for at least 8 years in KwaZulu-Natal on environmental affairs. Let me at the outset say, Chairperson, that our environment sustains us, gives us life, shelter, and commerce. Without it, we are a barren wasteland of nothing, and yet we choose to relegate it far too often to the sidelines, viewing it more as an impediment to progress and less as an overarching provider of everything we hold dear. This perception must change. Our environment must become our primary concern, and any legislation or regulation that does not promote sustainable growth must be amended or repealed. To this end, Honorable Chairperson, Madam Minister, I welcome your announcement that the Waste Management Act was promulgated in June. However, Madam Minister, we need to look at the regulations and the classifications of waste as contained in the Act, and that follows from the passing of the Act. Ash, which is used by many of our citizens to make blocks, is regarded as a hazardous substance, and yet it is of low risk. We urgently need this substance to be declassified, Madam Minister. Otherwise, we will get companies writing to people, like I have letters here, saying that they are at the risk of the green scorpions prosecuting them if ash is not declassified for our people to use to make blocks. It's an international practice. It's done all over the world. There's less risk, and we think this should be done sooner rather than later. To this end, I'd like to thank your DDG, Mr. Mark Gordon and Mr. Dlamini, for interacting with our communities, the Mkizas, the Mudlis, the Shezis, in Umkomas, to try and resolve this problem. But I think, Minister, your signature is required in this regard. The second community matter that I wish to raise, Madam Minister, is one that affects the South Basin, Durban South Basin. Now, I think we all know it's a notorious area for toxic pollution. There are many petrochemical industries situated there. The situation is not 100%, but is satisfactory at the moment in terms of emissions. But what the community is facing there at the moment, Madam Minister, through you, Honourable Chair, is large-scale pollution of our rivers and streams. In the last few days, thousands of fish have been killed in streams in the Durban South Basin. A community activist, Dr. Desmond Desar, has said that he has failed with the eThekwini municipality and the provincial government in getting them to address this particular problem. And we would like to ask your department, Madam Minister, to intervene so that we can save not only the fish, but we can save the livelihoods of people who rely on fish as protein. The third issue that I would like to raise in the limited time, Chairperson, is the question of rhino poaching. We say we have to save our rhinos. We have a responsibility not only to human beings, but we have a responsibility to our wildlife. And whilst we understand that law enforcement officers are trying to do their best, this situation seems to be getting out of hand, with over 600 rhino poached thus far, mainly in the Kruger National Park and in the parks in KwaZulu-Natal. I don't know why the Ugandan president had to say that if anybody is found poaching in a park, they should be shot. Now, I know we can't go that far, but certainly, Madam Minister, we need to take drastic measures. I also heard you say, and Honorable Mtembo referred to DNA, to the question DNA. And I understand that we signed an MOU with Vietnam with regard to cooperation in terms of rhino poaching. But to date, I don't think they've sent any DNA samples of rhino horns and other products that they found in their country back to South Africa so that this bilateral or this MOU can be put into effect. The last item that I wish to raise, Honourable Chairperson, in the 1 minute that you're going to give me, is a question of lion hunting. In the question of lion hunting, we need to ban canned lion hunting. It is becoming out of control in our country, but we are even allowing, Madam Minister, to export products that we get from lions, skeletons and other products. Now, we need to ensure that we do not support canned lion hunting. We cannot allow our country and the conservation of our country and the wildlife of our country to be destroyed by unscrupulous people who just want to make themselves rich. And we need to ensure, and you need to ensure,
Honourable
Madam
Singh.
Minister, that something is done about it. Thank you very much.
Your time. Thanks. Thank you, Honorable Singh. We now go on to Honorable Shilembe.
The Honorable Chairperson, the Honorable Minister, and Honorable Members of Parliament. The allocation of 5.6 billion to the Department of Environmental Affairs, which is aiming to give effect to the right of citizens to an environment that is not harmful to their health and to protect it for the benefit of the present and the future generation, is noted by the NFP. But the cutting down of the budget on some sub-programs in this department, we feel may lead to serious consequences, as this may have a negative impact to the well-being of the citizens. Honourable Minister, it is not acceptable that the department have, as we believe, number of vacancies because of failure by the department to finalize recruitment processes, while there is a continuous outcry of the rhino poaching in the South African parks. Therefore, it is a must that these vacancies are filled with immediate effect to combat the rhino poaching in our parks. The cutting of the budget for legal and compliance management will lead to non-compliance and weaken the enforcement that undertakes criminal and administrative enforcement action in response to non-compliance. The cutting from legal and compliance will further put the environment sector under immense pressure from the pollution and the national resources degradation. This means you have an obligation to ensure that such is prevented. The NFP note the increase to the allocation of the Ismangaliso Wetland Park Authority with appreciation. However, their corporate strategic plan is not indicating clearly the jobs that will be created for the historically disadvantaged communities in Umkhanyakude district. It only emphasizes on the increase of revenue and visitor numbers to the park, whilst people are evicted without compensation of their historical land and they cannot continue with their farming. Chemicals and waste management is very, very important, and to decrease the budget of the general waste and municipal support, we feel it is a disaster because municipalities are experiencing financial constraint, which is due to the number of indigent people to look after. Some municipalities are failing to manage their waste disposal site, which leads to pollution and associated impact as well as environmental degradation. Honourable Minister, while we appreciate your focus on expanding job creation through the expanded public works program, but it is noticeable that their earnings are far below when considering the cost of living. The gap between the poor and the rich is not getting closed. We appreciate the unqualified audit opinion to the department, but as the NFP, we want to see the clean audit. That is what we want to see. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Shilembe. We now call on the Honorable the Deputy Minister of Environmental Affairs.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Minister, Ms. Edna Molewa, the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, Ubaba Mthembu, members of the Portfolio Committee, members of Parliament, our entities that are here with us, our guests, ladies and gentlemen. Angibonge sihlalo. Sihlalo ngoma ngizoshaya ngomageba. Engathi laba basihumushelayo bangazibamba ziqine. Lo mnyango wethu wezemvelo uyawubukeka sengathi umnyango okhetha iphela emasini. Kuyaphoqeka ukuthi siqonde ukuthi lo mnyango sidinga sonke ngoba usithinta sonke. Konke okusizungezile kumayelana nalo mnyango. Kungaba umhlaba esiphila kuwo, umoya, amanzi, inhlabathi uqobo, ilanga, izitshalo, izihlahla, utshani, umkhathi, amahlathi, izilwane, ulwandle, imimfula, ekugcineni abantu uqobo. Kubalulekile ke ukuthi siqaphele ukuthi singazitholi sesicekela phansi wona umhlaba sibe siphila kuwona. Uma siwucekela phansi umhlaba, pho siyophila kuphi? Pho siyozinza kuphi? Bengithi angidlalele isihlalo ngiphinde ngiqwashise. Lolu suku lanamuhla usuku lwethu siumnyango wezemvelo. La sihlahla khona indlela esizohamba ngayo, ngamanye amazwi umkhombandlela. Ukusebenza kwethu kumbandakanya uhulumeni besifundazwe kanye nohulumeni basekhaya. Sinathemba ukuthi siyosebenzisana ngobuqotho ngoba phela inhloso yethu yinye, ukududula izwekazi lethu liye phambili. Asenakuphazamiseka ngoba abantu bangakithi sibonile imphumela yokhetho, sebekusho konke, bakwenza konke. U-African National Congress wanqenqeza phambili. Uminister uthintile udaba olubalekile kwalokhu esithi biodiversity. Yiyo phela abantu abasemakhaya bazikhusela ngayo. Bayazingela, bayadoba, bayatshala, bamba amakhubalo okuziphilisa. Bayatheza izinkuni zokubaza nezokwakha izindawo zokufihla amakhanda. Amakhubalo. Abantu basemakhaya funa sikhumbule ukuthi basadla imbuya ngothi. Kodwa sithi kulabo singakafiki kubona siyeza sizofika qathatha njengokufa. Bangalilahli ithemba. Ake ngithinte kafuphi kwezolwandle. Lokho bekushiwo uminister wami ngesinguni sothi Operation Shesha. Ulwandle lungezinye zesibusiso esigidlabezwe ngalo ngumdali. Yebo ulwandle luhle, liyabukeka. Kodwa lo hulumeni uthi phinde. Asingalibali ukubuka ubuhle bolwandle kuphela. Lolu lwandle liphethe umnotho ongasukumi phansi. Thina nozakwethu abanye besilibela ubuhle bolwandle, kanti onkabi bayavuna, bayazitika bodwana. Siyonithinta uma sesidumela ngaseMantsumpeni ukuze nani nivune efeni lalelizwe njengoba sisho kwi-Freedom Charter. Ngoba ulwandle lubalekile. Masiwanakalela amanzi alo, singawangcolisi. Izinga lokuhlanzela kwalo ulwandle libalekile kakhulu. Siyaqonda ukuthi lo mnotho wasolwandle sikhuluma ngayo ungahle uphakamise noma uvuse insiba kwabanye abantu. Asazi-ke ngoba konke lokho engikukhulumayo kuzokwenzeka kuwona lo hulumeni oholo maphume phethe. Sithi ulwandle luphethe okungaphezulu kokulubuka umnotho phela. Sihlalo ngike ngaba nethuba lokuvakashela umkhumbi ESA Agalas 2. Lona isikhondla somkhumbi esenza ucwaningo kwezesayensi olwandle. Mina nawe ngehlo lemvelo esingeke sikwazi ukulenza. Impela ngifunde engikakaze ngikucabanga. Lokhu kungenze ngakholwa ukuthi ngempela lo hulumeni kukhulu osukwenzile futhi kukhulu kuyeza. Sizinikele ukuthi sidlulele ngaphandle kwalokhu esithi i-exclusive economic zone. Impela nakube izwe lethu kuyizwe elisathuthuka. Hayi, linamandla kakhulu. Our commitment to Southern Oceans and Antarctica is evidenced by commissioning of the Sanei 4 base in Antarctica in 1997 and the new Marion and Prince Edward base in 2011 by this very government. These bases are serviced by our state-of-the-art polar research and supply vessel, the SA the SA Agalis 2, dedicated to Miriam Makeba. Commissioned by this government in 2012, our presence in Southern Oceans and Antarctica enables us to better understand, amongst others, the process and the impacts of climate change. Ngiyathemba Honorable Mqithama ungilalele kahle. This is a huge achievement by this government. Umthetho-sekelo walelizwe lethu uyagcizelela ukuthi kubalekile ukuthi sihloniphe imvelo ukuze thina nesizukulwane sethu sikwazi ukuzuza intuthuko ezimele neqhubekayo nezinzile. On the wildlife economy, we have more than 10,000 game farms across the country. The wildlife economy is currently valued at 8 billion rands, and it is growing at an annual rate of 20.3% in terms of turnover. The wildlife industry attracts a large number of international visitors each year and creates more than 100,000 jobs across the country. Nakhona la kule ngxenye yomnotho abantu bethu basahambela kude, kumele sibasondeze. Another interesting program is the Working for Wetland programs. This program was formed in 2000 to champion the protection, rehabilitation, and sustainable use of South Africa's wetlands through cooperative governance and partnership. This program has strong involvement with civil society. It is labor-intensive and contributes to skills development that contributes to expanded public works program. Nakhona la ngiyacabanga ukuthi umhlonishwa uMgqithama ungilalela ukuthi ngithini. There are
Can I ask a question, Chair? May I ask a question, Chair?
Honorable.
There are about 14 EPW.
Honorable Deputy Minister, please hold on. Honorable Mqithama, for the decorum of this House, if you want to ask a question or call a point, you stand up.
May I ask a question, Chair? Will the Speaker on the floor be as kind as to allow me to ask a question?
The Honorable Deputy Minister.
Honorable Mqithama, anginaso ngempela isikhathi sabantu abafana nawe.
Buza ukuthi abantu bahola malini ema public works.
Order, Honorable Mqithama. Out here, when Honorable Member. You don't do that. I'm sorry, Honorable Deputy Minister.
Ukuzwayo.
Can I deal with this one?
There are.
Honorable Deputy Minister. Oh. Honorable Mqithama, you don't behave like that in the House. When you have, don't respond to me. I'm making a ruling. You are not going to use your microphone when you are not given an opportunity. Thank you. Sorry, Honorable Deputy Minister, please continue.
Thank you, Chair. There are about 14 EPWP programs, including the Working for Water program, which will also ensure that over 750,000 hectares of land are cleared of invasive alien plants. The Working for Wetlands will rehabilitate 115 wetlands across the country. The Working for Land will also ensure that over 30,000 hectares of land are rehabilitated, and Working for the Coast will ensure that conservation work is done along 2,113 kilometers of the coastline. All these programs are among the most successful initiatives of government, as referred to by the President in his State of the Nation address. The returns on the investments are extremely high, and this also exemplifies the government's commitment to sustainable development. A budget of about 2.83 billion has been allocated to these programs that are aligned to EPWP for this financial year.
You have 1 minute, Deputy Minister.
Oh, in my 1 minute, angikhumbuze abahlonishwa abakulendlu ukuthi Balikhumbule usuku olumenyezelwe umongameli la ehlabe khona ikhwelo wathi masihambe siye ngaseyindaweni zethu siyosusa imfucuza endaweni esihlala kuzona nasemadolobheni ethu. Ngiyabonga kakhulu.
Siyabonga phindela ngqongqoshe. The Honorable Maluleke.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Chairperson. Kitla kupa ka usimula ka wa mohela mme wa rona e leng yena modulasetulo wa bomme wa Bokone Bophirima. Motlatsa Musa Khutla wa ntlo ya Bokone Bophirima mme Jane Manganye. Ya mme ba re ausushiela ngwana letswela eno ntshetse committee ya environment. Ke itumela mme ho ba teng ha hao. O tlo makala hore wa ke bolela ka Setswana ke lapisitse ke batho ba mpuso hore hona le Maluleke ko North West. So ke bona hore ke bolele Setswana ke tswele pele. Rona ra itumela ba nkileng wa re ho pediwa sefela ba re kena mbotle sebaka se sa le tebe re kena ho African National Congress. Ka hore ka tseno re khona ho bona moputso wa ho ba hare ho African National Congress. Minister Premier wa rona tlhola bolela a re hona le bo mama pareho le bo rama pareho re ne re makala o ra eng mara ra bona ka jeno hore ba teng ho thata ka montlung ye ba re nga re support budget ya botshelo ba batho fela mme re rona re le African National Congress ra support the budget hore maphelo a batho a tswele pele dilo tse di pila a di bonagala a ke batlo bolela ka di research tse di researchiwang go ntle ke nya go bolela ka irileng ke nna hore mo nakong ya ona bana rona ne re ira biblical study re sa itse re environment ke mara today ke khonore ke re ka pesa ngwana Jeresi ara wa mama wa bona weather ring ka tsona wa fisa so ke dilo tse re itumellang tsona tse African National Congress le government ya ona e re tletseng tsona ke mosola o rena re o bona e bila hape honorable minister rena re le batho ba ma Africa ne re be sa membaola ke sa khona be sa mbaola ka tseno ka hore o re rutile re khona o safe environment ya rona khale ke sa bone mushiko Mathibe start ke a itumela Minister, honorable members and chairperson, prior to 1994 environmental governance was emerging discipline that was selectively applied and highly fragmented in its application. The right to clean and healthy environment was not enshrined in the constitutional system, but was nevertheless selective applied. ANC-led government has come a long way to ensuring constitutionally entrenched right to clean environment is realized and protected. Rakhono bulela ka tseno ka environment. Ne re sa itse re greenhouse gases ke diloma. Re tswa mo committee le general ile lantlha re tsena mo are wa itse environment ke re ke tshuhile. Utlwa minister a bolela ka di greenhouse gases ke re ya mo re tlo di bona. So ra tlhalohanya ka tseno gore re bone ko ka nnete gore re bone ko Mathibe stata kwa re na le mengwaga re le busy re lema hona pula bana ra tlhalohanya gore dilo tse di khosa keng e bile re ikemiseditse ro ruta batho ba go rona gore tlogelang go fisa mabyae gore pula e khono bua ene so ke dilo tse re di bonang ke research rena re idirela re sene re utlwa ka di greenhouse gases tse minister na bua ka tsona e re ke tsene mo thomong e ke irumileng ke African National Congress. Honorable Chairperson, the focus of my debate is allocated within the context of response to ensure put in place to mitigate the aspects of climate change as a country. Honorable Chair, the danger posed by climate change to South Africa will remain a cause for concern to all of us. This is so because our development as a country hinges on the use of the natural resources. For us as a country to survive, we need to develop a good relationship with our environment by using the least that we have in the constructive way. It is in this spirit then that South Africa concluded a number of agreements to reduce the damage that can cause when there is no coordinated approach by the entire world to adhere to prescribed policies, principles, as well as resolutions that will help reduce danger. Jaga ma Africa, ha re tshwanele ho dirahatsa ditumallano tse. Ho tsibuha ha rona ka bonako mo ntlheng e ho tlile ho re thusa thata mo ho tsibuleng malwetse a re nang le ona. Ka hore ha re sa tsibuhele re tlo ba le malwetse a o tshwana le bo skin disease e leng ona malwetse a matlalo. Ka hore ha o fisa thata Batswana ba re ha o le mohote nna ba no ke Motswana o mongwe ke le boditse. Ha o fisa thata ke mo re khonang go kry-a di-skin cancer ka lebaka la gore matlalo a rona a utlwa bollo bo bo tseneletseng. Excessive rains leads to skin-borne diseases such as the skin rashes, skin cancer, stroke, and malaria. There is a call for a coordinated response to minimize the impact of climate change to the communities of the world. In his address to the official opening of United Nations Climate Change Conference, which is called COP17, high-level segment in Durban, the Honorable President Jacob Zuma said the following, I quote, "We need to rebuild trust and to reassure one another of honest intent and commitment to find solutions for the problem caused by climate change." Furthermore, in December 2009, President Jacob Zuma announced that South Africa will implement mitigation actions that will result in 34% and 42% deviation below its business as usual emission growth trajectory by 2020 and 2025 respectively. With the financial, technology, and capacity building support, South Africa's greenhouse emission to peak between 2020 and 2025. The National Climate Change Response Policy embodies South Africa's commitment to a fair contribution to establishing our own greenhouse concentration in the atmosphere and the protection of our country and its people from impact of inevitable climate change. South Africa is committed to reduce carbon emission to below its anticipated emission growth trajectory. Preparatory work and research to set emission reduction objective and measures this reduction in key sector is underway. In addition, South Africa is vulnerable to impact of climate change and it's there committed to strengthening its social and economic resilience to the effect of climate change. We assure South Africans that process to curb this is underway and South Africans do not have to worry on that. Re tlo sala morao, Minister, ra lebella hore ho sala morao ke ra re tlo thusana hore re bona hore ke nnete South Africa e ba safe. Rightfully, our president moved from the premises that acknowledge the common threat faced by humanity as caused by the ever-changing climatic condition. It is time we reinforce our approach in fighting the casual effect of this scale. Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, it is the sole responsibility of the department to make sure that we conform to the resolution adopted at Durban as a means to respond to the needs, reduce global threats to the environment. Accordingly, Honorable Chairperson, our budget needs to be responsive to implementation of the following set resolution as per directive by the Durban Summit on Climate Change. South Africa has in place strategic and address issues that have been identified as a priority of dealing with climate change in South Africa. Among others, we have the following in place. Integration of climate change response in government. This approach cuts across the government department and they are thus required to work together in coordinated manner. The signage
got 1 minute,
ensures...
Honourable Member.
Inventories gases in air pollution. Through the initiative of the department, several organizations, including the local government and others, there has been an undertaking to develop long-term project that use modern technology to monitor air quality instruction. Honorable Minister, it is clearly indicated that there is a need adequate funding to the department in order to achieve the monitored task. We are, however, confident that Minister's track record is licensed and will assist the department in realizing the objective as clearly expressed in South Africa's response in climate change. The ANC support the budget.
Thank you, Honorable Maluleke. Honorable Holomisa.
Our chairperson, Honorable Minister, Honorable Deputy Minister, and honorable members. The UDM supports the budget vote number 30. In my limited time, I will dedicate this speech to Madiba, the environmentalist. In celebrating the first birthday of Madiba without him, we can't but remember his passionate love and care for the nature and the environment, its relation to humankind and the people of South Africa in general. I am reminded of one of the questions this icon directly asked me when he returned from his early village walks in Kunu during the early 90s. He asked me, Bantu, what happened to all the birds that used to inhabit this place? Their harmonious sounds, their beautiful singing, which made many to enjoy the tranquility and nature of the village. In response to Madiba, I said, due to high level of poverty in the area, local people were forced to fell trees for use as wood fuel. Certainly, there is a direct relationship between poverty and environment, and unfortunately, it is not always a good one. The concern in the question by Madiba exposed us to the need to urgently give an immediate attention to preserve our environment. The afforestation programs, for an example, will one day make it possible to have the pleasure of walking through a forest, listening to the beautiful sounds of nature as Madiba so wished. To realize this wish, to realize his wish, the UDM suggests that as part of the much talked about cultural liberation route, which is being proposed to start from Maritzburg, perhaps we should be considered to establish what we would call Madiba or Nelson Mandela forests. Such forests would go a long way in responding to the challenges of climate change, biodiversity management, combat desertification, heritage conservation, and facilitate sustainable economic growth and job creation.
1 minute.
Given the current questionable infrastructure development map of our country, this proposal would present an opportunity for equitable reconstruction of our country. Yes, Chairperson Babum Tembo, finally, we welcome you in this portfolio committee. But please make sure that the city press do cover your well-articulated speech this afternoon. Ungathi uthethe lanto yakho ke mhlekazi. Odi don't buy, city press don't buy.
Thank you, Honorable Olomisa. Honorable Steenkamp.
Thank you, Chairperson. Theodore Roosevelt once said, to waste, to destroy our natural resources, to skin and exhaust the land instead of using it so as to increase its usefulness, will result in undermining in the days of our children the very prosperity which we ought by right to hand down to them, amplified and develop. To ensure the future of our children's children's children, we need to ensure that we protect and preserve our natural resources. By 2030, South Africa's transition to an economically sustainable, climate change resilient economy and just society should be well underway according to the NDP. The current budget lacks any reflection of this. To ensure the protection and preservation of our environment, we need funds to do more research, greater investment into green economy, and allocate funds to continue with projects such as working on fire. I am deeply concerned about budget cuts made specifically in regard to environmental programs and chemical waste management. Regarding environmental programs, the emergence of small, medium, and micro enterprises in areas such as waste management contribute to reducing employment, poverty, and income inequality. In committee, a great deal of lip service is paid to fostering a green economy, yet the budget was cut by almost 15 million. And why does environmental protection and infrastructure programs get a budget cut of almost 75 million? What is the likely impact of these reductions, both short-term and long-term? How would the reductions in the Green Fund affect projects and help innovate critical transition to our greener economy? Opportunities does exist for significant job creation in the recycling sector. Through improved regulations and partnerships between producers and municipalities, small businesses that focus on the collection and recycling of discarded goods such as glass, paper, and cardboard can flourish. The current budget fails to take a pragmatic approach to achieving the strategic objectives of improved socio-economic benefit within the environmental sector. On chemicals and waste management, the NDP states that a revolution in social values is underway, that our culture and conspicuous consumption is being supplanted by social and environmental responsibility. But how, Honourable Minister, can we give effect to this when this budget fails to create an enabling environment which supports the need to recycling everything from e-waste to industrial waste? The only thing government seems to be recycling is bad politicians. How can we say municipalities need more help when we cut the general waste and municipal support budget by almost 5 million? In a developing world such as ours, where we have so many harmful chemicals we use on a daily basis, why would we cut the budget of chemical management by almost R1 million? What justifies these reductions, and how does a budget cut happen when there are so many capacity constraints, specifically within local government? Furthermore, why are the department's 7 sub-departments not working harmoniously? Waste gets dumped at landfill sites. Very little of the waste gets recycled, and then most of it's set alight, causing massive pollution. How does that make sense? Why has the department introduced regulations on air quality management only to allow air pollution from burning landfills? Why welcome the results of these measurements? We welcome the results of these measurements. The poor air quality results will no doubt correlate with the poor decisions which informs this budget. Why don't we just start working together to create jobs? Why don't we incentivize recycling from local level upwards? It doesn't help if we buy different dustbins and different plastic bags and recycle in our homes and our businesses, and even here, when the municipal trucks comes to your house or your business and just chucks everything in there together, all de mekaar. What's that? Not recycling, definitely not. Government must create a sustainable environment to recycle. I'll leave you with the following. We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors. We borrow it from our grandchildren.
Thank you, Honourable Steenkamp. Honourable Ponome. Honourable Ponham.
Honourable Minister, Honourable Deputy Minister, my Honourable Chairperson, Honourable colleagues, friends and comrades, and esteemed officials, and members of the audience, I greet you. Despite the many challenges facing the waste sector in South Africa, it is heartening to note that the department has established an enabling legislative framework to deal and address them, as well as promote a recycling economy which contributes to the much-needed job creation in our country. The sector has definitely moved away from the conventional end of pipe pollution control system by adopting a full-cycle accounting based on the waste hierarchy approach of reduce, reuse, recycle, and waste diversion away from the landfill site. This has been further reinforced through the integrated approach by the adoption of integrated waste management plans for municipalities, ensuring that local government then prioritizes waste management in their integrated development plans. It is heartening to note that a new regulatory environment has been created which will generate revenue and wealth from waste, which will be used to fund and incentivize recycled industries, job creation, and other economic opportunities and enterprises in the waste sector. By apportioning the appropriate value of waste, more waste can be diverted from landfill sites for recycling, reuse, and energy recovery, bringing us closer to achievement of significantly less waste being dumped in landfill sites. The use of harmful chemicals still being used in society has always been a concern to me. It is pleasing to note that substantial progress has been made in chemical safety and management through the banning and phasing out of chemicals that harm the environment and the atmosphere. Example, ozone-depleting substances like hydrofluorocarbons. The department has undoubtedly taken up their responsibility as good citizens in the international effort to phase out the harmful chemicals by implementing the provisions of several multilateral environmental agreements that we have acceded to. The new regulations phasing out these chemicals is demonstration of our commitment to the international community in the fight against climate change and ensuring a safe society. Training and awareness raising rules will always be the area where resources must be invested in buildings and environmental conscious citizenry that will take responsibility for the maintaining of clean environments. I note that the department has been providing support to municipalities in the development of guidelines and integrated development plans, as well as training of councillors and officials. Given the challenges of local government, the support will have to be bolstered with additional resources to enable better waste management at resources. The department must be applauded for the turnaround achievement in licensing the unlicensed landfill sites across the country and bringing them into compliance. This will ensure that these waste sites are better managed and controlled. The basic waste collection rates have also increased over the years, which are pleasing to note. Enforcement by law and more vigilant compliance monitoring at the local government level will certainly assist in keeping our cities and towns clean. With the help of a more informed and more responsible citizenship, overall, the regulatory, institutional, and economic reforms adopted by the department for managing the waste centre is commendable. Educating in combating waste management starts right in your home, with the training of the children at the conscious of the protection of our environment and the challenging it faces with. The very same way a child is taught about non-racism and equality. Teach a child from a young age and will remain them forever. You will note that the way a child grows up to be and his future life depends on how its how he spent the first early years of his life. If brought up in that manner, it will grow up to be a respectable, decent, honorable person with a knowledge and understanding that environment is vital to our people. There are key challenges. With the absence of large-scale recycling infrastructure to enable waste separation, waste diversions, recycled and recovery, lack of policy and regulatory framework to promote the waste management reality, resulting in limited economic potential of waste management sector, which has possibly turnover of approximately 50 billion per annum. Outdated waste management infrastructure with declining levels of capital investment and maintenance. Overall, the Portfolio Committee was well pleased with the effort that the department put in formulating the strategic plan. The annual performance plans and indicators and relevant performance targets for 2014-15 financial year, the committee considered them realistic and achievable despite budgetary constraints. The committee is also acutely aware of the capability of the department to use the allocation made to it to fully implement the strategic plans, annual performance plans, and indicators and targets that are set aside were clearly illustrated by the department's ability to spend about 99% of its budget in successive final years. All this was done in line with the 2012 Polokwane Declaration of Waste Management. The agency is committed to ensure that our people have a better life with a clean, safe environment. I must say, Madam Chair, that the committee that I've been allocated to, the Environment Committee, I found it to be very pleasing, very satisfying, very enriching, and all the colleagues within it, I think we're working well as a team, and this committee is going to do well in the interest of South Africa in bettering the life of all people. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Bonhomme. I don't seem to have a representative of Ahang and the PAC and the APC. I will now call upon Honorable Stander.
Ndiabulela Sihlalo. Molweni, Honourable Minister, Honourable Members, Director General and your team, Manene Nani Manene Kazi. Fate rarely calls us at a time of our choosing. The budget prioritizes South Africa's many needs within the constraints of limited resources. This is obvious. What is not is why our environment is continuously under-prioritized by this government. President Zuma said environment exactly once in his State of the Nation address, Honourable Mthembu, and in reference to a different ministry. Our natural infrastructure is the infrastructure upon which our country is built. Yet this department is plagued by political doublespeak, talk versus budget. We welcome cabinet-approved budget cuts on subsistence and travel, but not the minister's violation of this by sending a delegation of 18 to Nairobi. Our parliamentary questions in this regard still remain unanswered. We encourage all efforts to implement measures to redress the imbalances of the past. And so we are disappointed that negligent political oversight has allowed 20 years to pass before general workers in sandparks were included in the medical aid policy, costing the department 155 million rand this year. Enforcement and compliance are essential responsibilities, but budget cuts have reduced the department's already low strategic targets of environmental authorization inspections from 135 to 115. A budget to increase the capacity of the department responsible for considering EIAs is needed. The DA always advocates for lean government administration, but employing and training more people would reduce opportunities for corruption and would speed up business development, the perfect enabling environment for job creation. We call on the Honourable Molewa to take her rightful place as the competent authority for mining licenses. As a custodian of the environment, it is baffling how she can be junior to a Minister of Mining on issues directly affecting the environment. During and out of committee, I have interacted with many of the department's team, and I'm encouraged by their competence and genuine commitment to this cause. However, I'm not confident that this budget gives them the resources they need to fully deliver on their mandate. We need to adopt a coherent macro spatial planning approach that considers the carrying capacity of land and clusters land use. We need to move toward implementing a natural accounting system. Both strategies would improve environmental planning, guide business planning, and lay a foundation for the transition to a green economy and greener jobs. We believe this department has had great success, like the Working on Fire program, and we greet you, representatives, today. But more must be done. Despite genuine concern and efforts to end the slaughter of our rhino, Honourable Minister, and the poaching of its horn, we are losing the war. Despite hundreds of millions of rands contributed by South Africans, another 1,000 rhino will be slain this year. The pro versus anti-trade debate is polarizing this country and detracting what should be our main focus, saving the rhino. It is illegal to trade in rhino horn. Whatever proposals will be made to CITES in 2016 do not release us from our responsibility to take radical action now. We need to communicate an unambiguous position that South Africa will not tolerate a tacit invasion, a quiet war on our natural resources. Are we not a sovereign, democratic nation founded on the supremacy of the rule of law? Are we not proud of what we have? Or instead, are we happy to see foreign syndicates overpower our defense force, our game rangers, and our police? Diplomacy is important, but there is no place for timid acquiescence now. Nat joints is ineffective. It either needs an overhaul or should be replaced with a more effective structure. We have to share intelligence, formulate a single strategy, and coordinate all efforts of stakeholders if we are going to win the war for the natural kingdom. The gap between the number of arrests versus the number of convictions is too wide, and worryingly, supports suggestions that corruption is at play. We call on the department to take a zero-tolerance approach to poaching, and for minimum sentences to be increased to 10 years for level 1 poachers. We call for more funding to stop the carnage. 100 million rand, as mentioned today, is less than the single international donation received last year, Honourable Minister. Private owners are spending about 200 million rand per year of their own money, risking their lives for these animals daily. We are in a state of war, Honourable Minister, and we are losing because your department is failing to make a real, tangible difference. In 2010, despite all the naysayers, we successfully pulled off the World Cup because we had a unified message, the resources and the political will. We need to do that again, but this time with a focus on our rhino. Get that right and we can tackle the rest of wildlife crime. We need our President, the Honourable Ministers, and indeed all South Africans to say with one voice, don't touch me on my rhino. Yes. Over 4,000 organizations globally are fundraising to save the rhino, with only about 160 registered with the Department of Social Development.
1 minute.
We have no idea how much of this money is actually spent on rhino-saving efforts, and ask that the department must publicize a list of the registered organizations so that the public can make informed choices when donating. Treasury needs to treasure our rhino and show us the money for the department to implement the recommendations above. Fate rarely calls us at a time of our choosing. Will South Africa be able to address this crisis before it's too late? Will we conserve our shared heritage, our inheritance? These are questions our choices of today will answer. We call for a review of this budget at the medium-term budget review. Ndiani Bulela.
Thank you, Honourable Stander. Honourable Mabilo.
Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Minister, Honorable Deputy Minister, Honorable Members of the House, distinguished guests. As a point of emphasis, the right of all South Africans to an environment that is not harmful to their health or well-being, and to have the natural environment protected for the benefit of current and future generations is enshrined in our Constitution. Honorable Chairperson, it is also the mission of this department to provide leadership in environmental management, conservation, and protection towards sustainability for the benefit of all South Africans and the global community. It is our considered view that this department is equal to this task, as shown through their master plan and also their strategic plan. The oceans and coasts in our country remain a national asset that belongs to all South Africans. Oceans and coasts throughout the world have historically been among the most heavily exploited areas because of their rich resources. In coastal countries today, an estimated half of the total population live in coastal zones. And it is therefore very important that we take note of the asset as displayed by the oceans and coast. During the apartheid regime, oceans and coast management efforts did not recognize the value of coastal ecosystems as a cornerstone for development. This management was also resource-centered rather than people-centered, and attempted to control rather than promote the sustainable use of coastal resources, with a lack of recognition of the diversity of our coasts. During the dawn of democracy in our country, we saw the emergence of the White Paper for Sustainable Coastal Development in South Africa in the year 2000. The purpose of this paper was to promote integrated approach in the management of our coast and redress the fragmented and uncoordinated manner in which our marine and coastal environment were managed, which benefited only a few privileged. This white paper gave birth to the promulgation of the National Environment Management Integrated Coastal Management Act of 2008, which has assisted this government to move away from a fragmented to a coordinated and integrated approach to coastal management. As our country was being welcomed into the global family, we had to adhere to global approaches like the 1992 Rio Earth Summit Program of Action called Agenda 21, which emphasized the integrated management and sustainable development of coastal areas and urged governments to develop policies that enabled stakeholder involvement. This approach was also echoed by the 2002 WSSD, which took place in Johannesburg, and it called for countries to promote integrated, multidisciplinary, and multi-sectoral approach to coastal and ocean management at the national level. Honorable Chair, marine protected areas in our country, including the offshore Prince Edward Island, also goes a long way in sustainable development. We must also remember that the marine protected areas help to promote and conserve the marine environment and marine biodiversity by providing a sanctuary for species and impact by fishing exploration. Honorable Chair, it is clear that we now have begun as a country to realize and understand the economic value of our ocean and coastal areas. Last year, the Department of Environment Affairs coordinated a study to analyze the economic potential of South Africa's oceans. This work demonstrated that the economic potential of South Africa's marine resources could be optimized further. Overall, South Africa's oceans could generate an estimated GDP contribution of up to 177 billion by the year 2033. Through government interventions to unlock the value of certain sectors in the oceans and coastal sphere. Honorable Chair, the President of our Republic, President Jacob Zuma, has announced Operation Phakisa, which the Minister has referred to during the State of the Nation address. This operation is the government's intervention to come up with implementable plans to unlock the economic potential of the ocean and coastal sector. The President of the Republic, as also mentioned by the Minister, will officially launch this Operation Phakisa on Saturday, the 19th of July, this coming Saturday.
Invite them.
You are all invited. Jobs linked to the ocean economy could rise to 1 million jobs, more than double the level in 2010. Honorable Chair, today, South Africa, as part of BRICS, the emerging world powers within BRICS are at a different place in their relationship with their oceans and coasts. In the light of the above, the main maritime benefits for South Africa from its partnership with BRICS countries are obvious. One, an older and developed marine economy across South Atlantic Ocean in Brazil. One. Two, another one across the Indian Ocean in India. Three, a substantial and highly sophisticated polar marine industry in Russia. Four, a relatively new but fast-growing and public sector-driven maritime economy in China. So we are properly located in BRICS. Honorable members, this ocean economy is underpinned by the National and Environmental Management of the Oceans White Paper, which was approved by the Cabinet last December. The principles enshrined in this ocean economy policy are from the National Development Plan, which encourages the valuing of our oceans for the benefit of all our people. As I conclude, furthermore, with regard to the blue economy, our region is now emerging as the oil and gas hub, given the massive gas finds along Africa's Indian Ocean coast. The Atlantic seabed has long been a vital supply of these hydrocarbons. It is only through this way that we can build our ocean-dependent trade-based economies into engines for growth and development in order to eliminate poverty, unemployment, and equality. Honorable Chair, before I sit, I just want to give two free lectures to the Honorable Mkitama, that no amount of hot air or cheap political shots or sloganeering will address the fundamental challenges that we are confronted for as a country with regard to the protection of the environment. We are saying also to the Honorable Steenkamp, we don't need your cheap lectures in relation to the tasks and far-fetched solutions that you are coming with. But what we are saying as a government, we are equal to the task, and to ensure, let's give you the clear directive. Protection of the environment for the future of our generation is a collective responsibility, and you cannot play party politics around it. So we are saying that
1 minute
this
left.
government is offering pragmatic, realistic, objective solutions to the current challenges. And as the ANC, we support this budget vote. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mabilo. The Honorable Minister, Mulawa. Order. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I would like to start by appreciating all inputs made by honorable members in the debate. I forgot to welcome our former chair, and the now Deputy Speaker of Northwest Province. They were both members of this portfolio committee. I want to suggest that one day they be brought in here to just give a bit of education to some of our honorable members across the other side. Because indeed, I don't know what to respond to, especially from honorable member of EFF. I've written here, I don't know, because I honestly don't know what he was saying.
It's called hot air.
As for honorable members, Member Steenkamp, I think you have a long way to go. There's potential though, ma'am. You have a long way to go in terms of understanding what the kinds of things that we're talking about. I have 3 minutes and I have to respond. Please sit down. I want to respond to very positive inputs. Date Olomisa, your suggestion about Madiba is most welcome indeed. And I think we'll have to work together on that part because there is a thought about the legacy of Madiba within the heritage issue, World Heritage Site, or even a National Heritage Site, so we can work on those things and embody them in there. There is an issue that we're working on that needs intervention. That's a declassification of a waste. We will have to revert to you in relation to that. And certainly with regards to the DNA sampling, there's a lot that's happening in response to the issues that you raised. I do want to indicate that, as I said in the speech, that there's a lot of work that's beginning to be done with Vietnam and China. In particular, in Hong Kong, by the way, there's also a consignment that has been found there by the authorities there who have alerted us in South Africa. So there's great work that's been done there. Why I'm saying, Honorable Member Steenkamp, in relation to the issues that you're raising, that we need to get a whole long way, is because it took quite a while for all of us, those of us who are not closer to this portfolio of environment, to understand a lot of work that's been done in capping the rhino poaching. It's been done by me, so I have a lot to teach you, those who are saying inside. So it is indeed necessary that when we are South Africans, as we stand up, we must remember that there's a lot that's happening. We must contribute to that which government is doing. Government efforts are a lot. We haven't spoken about even a quarter of what we are doing here today. So it's important that we realize that. Yes, indeed, a proposal that we'll be putting in front of that COP will be well researched, I did say, will be well thought through. There shall be consultation, and there shall be certainly contributions from South African, as we always have it. Those who will say, we think this is what you should do, and we will listen. But we will find it difficult to listen to those who are saying, you are not doing this, you are not doing that, and doing that, and doing that, not doing that, not doing that. It's a problem. So let's learn to do something, really. Recycling economy, it's a very, I think many members from the African National Congress made good contributions. We welcome that and appreciate your inputs indeed. Issues around the fact that these matters that we're dealing with are really environmental matters that started to become more important in 1994 only. Chairperson, you were so right. And the OECD report does state that indeed South Africa has moved a whole long way. By the way, other honorable members from the other side, from their inheritance and movement away from the original parties, come from not doing anything about these issues. We have made strides. The OECD report does say the kinds of things that you are saying. Ours is to be focused and move forward. And ours too is ensure, where I agree with you, that the environmental impact assessment that are being done must enable development. I did say this is the reason why we actually integrated the systems to make it a coherent system. Read again about it. That we must ensure that mining authorizations are done now under NEMA, National Environment Management Act, no longer under EMPR.
1 minute.
So we are moving that direction, and it is out of our own accord, not having been taught by the DA to do these kinds of things that we're doing. There's a matter about ESCOM emissions. We did state a member of a DA that there is greenhouse gas inventory that was conducted by ourselves, together with South Africans, to just understand the amount of gases that are out there. And right now, even as we say we're sitting on not so good a picture, it's still not beyond what we have actually calculated to be at this point in time, given our mitigation scenario. So we're not quite worried because we know, again, given what the actions that we said we will take, allocations of the desired emission reduction outcomes, the industries that will be allocated will take action, and indeed we are certain that there will be reduction by the time of at least 2020.
Your time is expired.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the budget support to all of you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister, Deputy Minister, and members for that lively debate. Members are reminded that EPCs on sport recreation, South Africa, and cooperative governance and traditional affairs will meet at 16 hours 35 sharp in the old assembly chamber here and committee room E249 respectively. That then concludes the business of the day and the extended public committee. The sitting is now adjourned.
Got environmental here. Thank you.
Why do you want to do that? Because my voice is going to run dry.
Honorable members,
The chairperson.
There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Please be seated. The Secretary will read the order.
Debate on vote number 20, Sport and Recreation, South Africa, Appropriation Bill.
I now call upon the Honourable the Minister of Sport and Recreation to introduce the debate.
Chairperson, Deputy Minister of Sports, Mr. Gerst Oosthuizen, the Chairperson of the Parliamentary Committee on Sport and Recreation, MECs from various provinces, the DG, honourable members, distinguished guests, and all our invited guests in the gallery from different sporting codes. Sanbonani. Chairperson, it is now exactly a month since the President, His Excellency J.G. Zuma, delivered the State of the Nation address to this August House, setting forth a clear program of action that this government will be pursuing and executing in the next 5 years. The President's address is indeed a clarion call to action to all of us, more so to the sporting sector, on the direction that this nation will be taking over the next 5 years. Honorable members, we return to this House this afternoon, reinforced and emboldened by the appointment of 8 new members of the Provincial Executive Councils for Sport, with 1 having been retained. Honorable members, please join me in congratulating the incoming MECs and the returning MEC, and of course, I wish the colleagues successful run in the term of office. We congratulate the incoming chairperson of the, the incoming chairperson of the Sport and Recreation Portfolio Committee, and we are looking forward to closer dynamic and enhanced working relationship with the Portfolio Committee and the MECs. The appointment of a woman chairperson of the Portfolio Committee alongside 7 women MECs is indicative of the African National Congress commitment to gender parity and is a good omen for the development of women in sport and augurs well for the transformation in the sport and recreation sector. Watinta bafazi, watinta imbokoto, malibongwe, igama lamakhosikazi, uza kufa finish and clear. As the Deputy Minister and myself also have been retained, I would like to get a round of applause for that. Chairperson, over the last financial year, we have taken deliberate and direct action towards ensuring that as many as possible South Africans participate in sport and recreation activities, and indeed this is beginning to bear fruits as we saw that over 3 past financial years. 61,694 people were given access to participate in sport. Honorable members, over the past 2 financial years, 2011, 2012, 2013, support was provided to 1,461 athletes and 77 coaches. In 2012-2013 alone, 90 athletes were supported, and at the end of the year under review, 58 athletes and coaches were being assisted by means of scientific support programs. The support provided to these sportsmen and women contributed towards their achievements nationally, continentally, and consequently internationally. Chairperson, development remains the critical foundation for progress at grassroots level through to elite sport and high performance. Hence, our theme for this year's budget vote speech is correctly coined, Accelerating Sport Development, our non-negotiable mandate. We implore all stakeholders to work hand in hand with us in addressing the issues of development across all the sporting codes in South Africa, in particular the 17 priority sports codes that we have identified. We reflected in our National Sports and Recreation Plan that, I quote, worldwide sports strategies are focused on increasing levels of participation in sport and recreation, as well as achieving success at an international level, close quote. International experiences have shown that indeed successful sporting nations do not just derive their success from the air. Meaningful investments are required from early age for enhanced effective participation in sport. As we have further argued in our National Sports Plan, no country can expect to achieve and sustain success at an elite level without a strong participation base in the community. We therefore have identified school sport as the central starting point for sport development in this country. We shall indeed not end there, as we will also be putting in place facilities in communities, working together with the municipalities and the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. In his response to the State of the Nation address, the President reflected, and I quote, one of the success areas of every nation must be its ability to compete with the nations on the sporting field. We have to improve our sports performance, close quote. In this regard, the President has given us a commanding instruction to work with various stakeholders in investing in school sport provision and maintenance of adequate sport facilities in our residential areas. Chairperson, we have met with all MECs and all stakeholders and mapped a way forward and plotted a strategic way forward in terms of what needs to be done. In sports and recreation, we know very well we can be all over the place and want to do everything that everybody wishes us to do. But we have identified 4 to 5 areas that need real emphasis in the next 5 years and even beyond, arising from the implementation of the National Sports Plan. One, it is school sport. School sport provides a platform for all learners, skilled or unskilled, with an opportunity to develop their potential at a very early age. Our philosophy, approach, and belief is that school sport is the bedrock of our entire sport development continuum. It sets a foundation from which some of the great sports persons can develop their potential. Abigail Pakisi on Facebook has made a plea that we should help improve school sport as it is central to development. Abigail, you will be pleased to know that we take the issue of school sport very seriously, as we concur with you that there cannot be any meaningful development without grassroots development, which is mainly provided at the level of schools. In 2011, we made a commitment with the Department of Education whose aim is to ensure that each and every learner at schools do participate in sport. I have said during that time that we need to move away from a situation where school sport is just an extramural activity, but a core element of school curricula. Currently, there are about 24,000 schools in South Africa, constituted by about 12.2 million learners. Of these schools, 18,786 are registered to participate in the league system. As a department, we intend to set aside 25% of our budget, which is approximately 400 million for school sport development. When we started with this program in 2012, there were only 5,137 participants at the National School Sport Championship in Tshwane across 8 courts last year at the 2013 National School Sport Championship in Mangaung. There was a total of 11,780 participants across 11 courts. This program is growing exponentially on an annual basis. At this year's championship, we will further include new courts. Swimming and goalball have been added to the championship, and a further addition has been on 2 new courts for indigenous games, Koko and Khati. We anticipate that the number of participants will increase to improve to 15,000 at the 2014 championship. It is our state policy commitment that all schools in our country and all children should be afforded the opportunity to at least play 1 court of sport during their schooling days. It is from this program that we seek to identify talent, to harness, incubate, nurture, and develop it to the elite performance level. We'll also continue to integrate the rest of the priority sporting codes and indigenous games into the school sport system over the medium term, and to pursue the alignment of the school code structures and the federation structures. The cooperation between SRSA and DBE lays the foundation for the delivery of the integrated school sports program. One of the biggest challenges facing the school sport program is teacher involvement and capacity of educators in the delivery of sport. It is imperative for the 2 departments to put focused emphasis on empowering educators. A further challenge in delivering sport in schools is the shortage of suitable sporting equipment and apparel. In some cases, when schools do get equipment, it is of inferior quality, despite the exorbitant prices being charged by service providers. To address this, the department is implementing norms and standards regarding the specifications of what can be purchased and distributed regarding sport equipment and consumables. Chairperson, one of the most important policy initiatives government has undertaken is the national norms and standards for building of new schools. Although this policy clearly directs that all new schools that are being built should have sport and recreation facilities as part of the establishment process, this is unfortunately not yet implemented. We are also going ahead with an initiative to register at least 2 schools per sporting code per province as a specialist sports school. This work will ultimately see the accreditation and operation of 890 schools across the breadth of our country, representing the 16 priority codes for the school sport. We have already accredited 12 such sport-focused schools and are exponentially increasing this number to reach the desired target by 2032. The second phase of this initiative, which is underway, will see schools from KwaZulu-Natal and Northern Cape included. Chairperson, as I stand before this August House today, learners have already been identified at the National School Sport Championship held in 2012 and 2013 for placement in the specialized schools. These learners are fully funded to ensure that they receive quality education while developing as athletes in various codes. Despite the signed agreement between the Department of Basic Education and Department of Sports and Recreation, there are still structural challenges that need to be addressed. Our consistent call to have physical education delinked from life orientation subject and made a standalone subject has been ignored and disregarded. We strongly and firmly believe that physical education is key to ensuring that sport at schools becomes an integral part of the curriculum. We believe that there should be dedicated teachers for physical education. It remains our call that the Department of Basic Education should ensure that there is adequate availability of skilled physical education educators in all schools and dedicated period for physical education outside of life orientation, of which learners must be assessed with particular focus being on schools in rural areas. Honorable members, following on the success of the school sport league system, the option of introducing a university sports cup and supporting leagues will be explored. This will provide a clear developmental pathway for talented athletes as they leave school. The importance of school sport to the development and growth of sport in our country is reflected in the growth in expenditure over the MTF period. The main activity in the school sport sub-program is the National School Sport Championship. The amount allocated is 32.2 million at national level and 210 million, which is 40% of the conditional grant. But as I've reflected, this amount is too little to meet the objectives that we have set ourselves in school sport. Given the magnitude of the school sport program and the limited available public funds, we have commenced a process of mobilizing private partnerships and funding to increase the participation base for school sport, particularly the age-specific league programs within specific codes. We have formulated a new funding model to finance the national school sport program. The second aspect, Honorable Chairperson and members, we have identified is club development. Even though an integrated and sustainable club structure is recognized as prerequisite for the foundation of the South African sports system, currently there is no accurate picture of what clubs exist and their membership status. And many of the clubs developed have not been sustainable. To this effect, we have produced a club toolkit towards classifying and grading clubs and conducted a pilot study in Mopane District Municipality, rural in Limpopo Province, and eThekwini Metropolitan Municipality in KwaZulu-Natal, where we are piloting a franchise system of club development. The outcomes of the pilot study will determine the extent of a further rollout of the system. We'll also be conducting a comprehensive audit of clubs linked to 16 of the 64 recognized national federations supported. The third aspect is community sport. Sport participation opportunities will continue in 2014-15 to be provided to communities through our community sport sub-program. We'll continue to fund Love Life with the funding choices aligned to the objectives of the sports plan and the department. Love Life will continue its focus on developing the capacity of young out-of-school and unemployed people in rural and marginalized communities with limited opportunities. A new crop of groundbreakers will be supported that are SRSA specific and specific from communities surrounding the 2010 FIFA legacy pitches. On facilities, which is the fourth aspect, this financial year will continue to lobby for facilities and coordinate the provision of sport and recreation facilities by municipalities. And we continue to lobby that the municipal 15% grant must be allocated wholly to the sports and recreation department. Because this money, whilst it is allocated to municipalities, stand to be diverted from time to time because of challenges that municipalities are faced. When money is allocated to us, which we have done thorough work in terms of looking after the facilities and the costs of the total figure of the 15% allocated, and we are convinced that we'll be in a position to implement the rollout of infrastructure at all levels in the communities. And we'll continue to roll out as well outdoor gyms, infrastructure for the year, and we have allocated 10.4 million to achieve this particular purpose. Chairperson, the other aspect is the academy system. We have, through the National Sports and Recreation Plan, made a commitment to support the development of South African sport through a coordinated elite sport academy system. The essence of this system will be to create centers of excellence which will support and enhance levels of performance of talented athletes and to create a new generation of coaches, administrators, and technical officials. We have signed a cooperation agreement with the government of the Kingdom of Lesotho on the High Altitude Training Center at Harapulukana, Harapukulana, in the Lesotho Highlands. Sorry, Basotho. We have further to this established a national training center for South African elite athletes in partnership with the Free State Department of Sport and Recreation, SASCOC, the Free State Sports Science Institute, and the Free State Sports Confederation. Ladies and gentlemen, we are pleased to also announce that the Netball Premier League and Basket League that we have always promised to implement have successfully seen the light of day. We also are planning to implement the rollout in diversification of sport of Volleyball Premier League and also National Professional Hockey League for South Africa. The scoping exercises will be concluded in the current medium-term period. We believe these leagues will contribute immensely to the professionalization of sport in South Africa and contribute towards the transformation process in sport.
Honourable Minister, you have 2 minutes to conclude.
In the last point that I want to emphasize is transformation. Right at that point. Engagements we have made with the different stakeholders are indicative of how narrowly some of us view transformation. Despite the transformation scorecard that highlights different elements, such as governance as part of transformation, public discussions have already degenerated to simple equation of color and quotas. Nonetheless, we realize that our approach to transformation is bottom-up, is not imposing it horizontally on federations. Transformation will be executed in the context of the implementation of the scorecard and the transformation charter that has been agreed. All the other aspects that we have outlined as our priority areas, academy system, school sport, and the community sport and so on, are integrated plans that enhances the full implementation of transformation in South Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The next speaker is the Honourable Dlulane.
Thank you, Chairperson. Yasuka yahlala ninganyebelezeli kuzawudlalwa. Honourable Chairperson, Honourable Minister and Deputy Minister, Honourable MECs, and Mbono wasekhaya, Honourable members, sport fraternity and distinguished guests. I wish to take this opportunity to forward our sincere condolences to Ntwanambi family, who lost their daughter, who was also a member of parliament and a leader in the women's struggle in this country within the ranks of the ANC Women's League. She was also an NEC member of the ANC and the deputy president of the Women's League. May her soul rest in peace. Equally important, Honourable Chairperson, I wish to pause at this moment and congratulate Brazil on the successful hosting of the 2014 FIFA Soccer World Cup. We know that Brazil and South Africa are members of the BRICS and share some similarities with regards to the socio-economic landscape, but most importantly is the passion for sports. We know for a fact that Brazilians are exceptionally passionate about football, but they are also equally focused on eradicating inequalities in their country, the same as we do. The 2014 FIFA World Cup was organized in such a way that it would be remembered for years, leaving a positive legacy for society as a whole, just like it did in South Africa, and was still reliving the memories of 2010 FIFA World Cup, Minister. As a global citizen, Honourable Chairperson, allow me to also congratulate the German national team for winning the 2014 FIFA Soccer World Cup. At one point in life, the German national team were embarrassed by their early exit at the Euro 2000. But now they boost both Champions Leagues finalists and they boost both Champions Leagues finalists and 2014 World Cup champions, thanks to the system that values coaches and nurtures indigenous talent. Indeed, some few lessons can be learned from the patience of ensuring that development structures are established and programs are in line with building a strong foundation from which talent can be identified, rather than just throwing money at every problem. Forced into an overhaul of youth football, the DFB, the Bundesliga, and the clubs decided that the development of more technical, proficient, homegrown players would be in everyone's best interest. This led to the creation of academies right across the top two divisions. This approach of building structures to support a whole system can be transplanted and implemented as captured in the National Sport Recreation Plan. The pillars of an efficient sports system is its composed structure and the coordination, therefore. This year we are celebrating 20 years of freedom and democracy in South Africa. It is indeed a remarkable achievement that we have managed to come this far. Where we can indeed make observation about the progress our country has made in many different spheres of government, and also highlight the challenges that still confront us in 20 years later. Linked to this is that many years ago, before democratic parliament, I decided and dedicated my entire life to wage the struggle against gruesome system of apartheid. We used in netball to recruit young comrades as a cover to conscientize those cadres about the evil laws at the work. I used to play number 7, which was called goalkeeper, defender. At that time, it has never been easy, as we were subjected to all forms of injustice. Those were trying times, and that characterized days of our lives back when we utilized netball to advance our struggles against oppression. At that time, there was absolutely no good story to tell compared to today. In silence and in obviously creating pain, the voice of Priscilla Isake Kaseme kept me going, especially his conviction that one day Africa shall rise. Indeed, Africa proved to be a sleeping giant, and it has reawakened. And this has been through the focus and resilience of the displaced and the oppressed, especially in our country. As we celebrate 20 years of democracy, which on its own is a good story to tell, I must reiterate what Minister Mbalula has mentioned about transformation. It appears that transformation has been as slippery as ill and very difficult for the sports sector to get to grips with over the past 2 decades. Different people at different times have had different understandings of the term transformation. With no common understanding or definition, it is no wonder that 20 years into our democracy, the sports sector is still not transformed. The sector has not even met its own targets. This is really sad, because in the end, it is our athletes that have not been afforded the opportunities to develop and perform to their highest potential. Of course, there are some of us who prefer this misunderstanding, as it serves their purpose in delaying transformation. They have apartheid hangovers. Honorable members and the guests, his does not lie. Imbali ayixoki. Into eyenzekayo iyawuhlala kusithiwa yenzeka. Ours is to progressively learn and correct to avoid repeating the history of heartless blunders. In 1958, in this country, a particular Mr. Dodges, who was the Minister of Sport in South Africa, adopted a sport plan that gave priority to rugby and cricket, to a point that a white child and supported and funded 8 times more than a black child. Today, there are still some amongst us who find solace and displeasure by perpetuating Mr. Dodge's irrational ideology by devastating a black child. There is no better example to illustrate this point than what happened to Tammy Tsolekile recently. The late Maya Angelou, in his poetic flowing works, encouraged us to rise in times like this, when she says, and I quote, "You may write me down in history with your bitter and twisted lies. You may treat me in a very dead, but still, like dust, I will rise." By doing radical change, we must rise on behalf of the Tsolekiles of this world to and have more good story to tell, as we are an ocean that lives behind the nights of terror and fear. Politically, we are the dream and the hope of the slave. Chairperson, as progressive forces of our people, we receive a clear and consistent mandate to change that to Mr. Dodges of 1958. This has been asserted in the last 2 ANC conferences, which swiftly endorsed the case of transformation of sport in our country. Such a process led to the birth of National Sport Recreation Plan, which was adopted by the Cabinet 2 years ago.
Honourable Member, you have 2 minutes.
This is a beautiful but unfunded mandate. Minister, before I sit down, we've got a briefing and we were sure and we want to see the change. This mandate of yours, which is unfunded, we will be doing our own oversight as a committee. We all agreed that we are not happy about the rural areas, that there are no facilities, there are no facilities, creational things, creational halls and whatever. But before I'm sitting down, those provincial MECs that they are not taking sports serious, we can't give government 15% of our budget. And it's only 3 provinces, your Eastern Cape, your KZN, and Western Cape, that they are toppling the money for the sport. Why is it like that? We'll do oversight. And we are not happy with the SALGA. We want them to tell us whether they are not dumping tools about this money. It's either they are receiving it late, but this is a new committee. We'll be all over wanting to see what is a black and white tide is getting. The ANC support the budget.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Sesjoka.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, Honourable Minister, fellow Honourable Members, future sports stars in the gallery, ladies and gentlemen. We were once again reminded of the uniting power of sport with the 2014 FIFA Soccer World Cup. It is a pity that we had to be content with watching other national teams because our own Bafana Bafana did not qualify for reasons that are obvious to this House. The World Cup was yet another sad reminder that we are a lightweight football nation that is a distant mile from competing with the heavyweights. Our failure as a country in sport is not because there is a lack of talented youngsters who want to become sport champions.
Chairperson.
Yes, Honourable Member.
This is the member's maiden speech, and he's a new member of Parliament. Could we just ask for his protection?
Honourable Member. Order, Honourable Members. Order. Honourable Members, your whips have not indicated anything that this is the member's maiden speech. In future, I will encourage the whips of your party to inform us so that we can announce when that is the case. In the meantime, you continue, Honourable Member.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm unshaken by the intimidation. Several of our sports stars and sports teams have and continue to show glimpses of greatness across different sporting codes. The Springboks' courageous victories in 1995 and 2007 were a testament of the strength of domestic rugby structures to produce world-class talent. Bafana Bafana's metamorphosis from football minnows to champions of Africa in 1996 was proof that limited resources are not always an obstacle to achieving success in sports. The sight of Josiah Tungwani, who was a security guard and became a long-distance runner, sprinting to gold medal victory at the 1996 Olympics.
Continue, Honourable Member.
The sight of Josiah Tungwani, who was a security guard come long-distance marathon runner, sprinting to gold medal glory at the 1996 Olympic Games, remains one of our country's truly inspirational sports stories. Chad Litlow's unbelievable powerful strike to win the gold medal in the 200 meters butterfly at the London Olympics was the culmination of years of hard work, complemented by quality coaching from an early age. The success of the under-19 national cricket team, who are the current world champions in their division, and the Baby Boks, who are the runners-up in their division, are evidence that some sports federations have solid youth development programs than others. Honorable Chairperson, the common denominators of this unimaginable achievement of these athletes and teams I've mentioned are proper development structures and exceptional individual resilience. These are rare victories in the midst of thousands of talented aspirant sports stars throughout the country. However, we can begin to change this by producing a generation of champions, if only our federations and sport administrators are committed to good governance in sports. The two federations that have produced the most medal winners at the Olympics and Paralympics, being Athletics South Africa and Swimming South Africa, have often been bedeviled by prolonged periods of internal instability. As such, the interests of swimmers and athletes were relegated to the backseat as administrators were in self-destruction mode. Our elite swimmers and athletes often grapple with the rigorous task of competing at the highest level with relative, if not any, support from their federations. It is no wonder that some of them often opt to move overseas to prepare themselves adequately to compete against their peers who receive substantial support from their domestic federations. Honorable Minister, the truth is that in sport, what happens in the boardroom has a direct correlation to what happens in the field of play. We have become serial underachievers in sport because our administrators are architects of what you often call mediocrity in sport. This ranges from the absence of concrete youth development programs in some federations and poor governance models in other federations. Many of our federations repeatedly bemoan their increased withdrawal of sponsors from sport without some introspection. The reality is that our administrators don't value the importance and difference that good governance does in sports. The levels of financial mismanagement and a blatant refusal to account to sports authorities, including some federations, Minister, that get funding from your department, are harming the prosperity of sports in our country. And unlike your predecessors, Minister, this is where you have real power to change this. The grants that your department provide to federations, as correctly alluded to by the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, totaling a total of 97 million for the 2013-2014 financial year, which has increased to an allocation of 113 million for the current financial year, are your instruments of upholding good governance in sports. No federation, and I repeat, no federation that receives a dime of public money should continue to do so if it consistently fails to account for every single cent that they receive from your department. For our part as the Portfolio Committee, we will assist you by regularly summoning federations to appear before the Portfolio Committee to account for the management of taxpayers' money. And we hope that, Minister, you will not deter to appear before the Portfolio Committee so that we can hold these federations accountable for all the grants that you allocate to them for sports development to ensure that these monies are spent on producing the next generations of talented sports stars that our country needs to compete at the highest level. Honorable Chairperson, good governance in all sport federations is a non-negotiable requirement for success in sports. In this regard, I urge the Minister to prioritize the improvement of governance in sports bodies by supporting them with the provision of training in financial management and corporate governance using the already available expertise that are there in the department led by the Director General. We expect the department and the Minister to lead by example in promoting financial prudence in sports. This brings me to the Minister's self-professed insatiable appetite for mega events and razzmatazz. Honorable Minister, we appreciate the energy that you have injected into this portfolio by revitalizing sport in the country. We congratulate you for launching the netball and basketball Premier Leagues. However, we are concerned by your fidelity for excessive cost to celebrate modest milestones. Surely spending over 50 million on the annual South African Sports Awards between the 2011-2012 and 2013-2014 financial years is an unnecessary extravagant transaction in the face of repeated pleas for additional funding for investment in decent sports facilities where they are needed most, in the rural villages that the Honorable Chairperson referred to. And Honorable Minister, please don't get me wrong. We are all for celebrating the exceptional achievements of our athletes whenever they reach the pinnacle of sports glory. What we are not in support of is a process whereby we invite global entertainment has-beens at exorbitant cost to come to the country to headline these sports awards when we have equally, and in many cases, more than talented local entertainers that are available at a very modest cost. Honorable Chairperson, we are concerned about the dire state of boxing in the country. However, it was refreshing to learn that the current board of Boxing South Africa is dedicated to upholding good governance practices in the organization. We commend the current chairperson, Untitled Vele's swift action to launch a preliminary investigation that resulted in the ultimate suspension of the current acting CEO for allegations of maladministration and fraud. We hope that Dr. Untitled Vele's team will herald a new era of clean, efficient, and sound management of boxing to revive the sport to its former glory days and hopefully return the sport to the public broadcaster so that it can be broadcast